Good morning, YouTube. How are we today? If you found this video, it probably means that you are in the market for a new camera. Or conversely, if this video has found you, then maybe the YouTube algorithm is trying to tell you that it's about time you became a photographer. Either way, I'm going to cut to the chase on this one. This is my guide to all of the Fujifilm X-Series cameras that are currently available. Now, I am in the lucky position that I have had hands-on experience with most, if not all, of the cameras that I'm going to talk about today, so I hope that you learn something, and if you do, a like on the video and a sub to the channel would be super appreciated. The way I'm going to do this is by breaking the video up into segments of what you want to do with the camera. So I'm going to talk about the fixed lens compacts, and then I'm going to talk about the general usage cameras, then ones that are more photography focused, and then ones that are more video focused. So if you're looking for a specific use case or a specific niche that you know that you want to fill, then take a look at the chapter markers down below and jump around the video until you find the bit that you're looking for. Before we start, I will say that my general advice will always be to buy a camera based off of features rather than off of image quality. All modern cameras can make a great photograph, so when you're getting a new one or thinking about getting a new one, the thing you should care about the most is the features and what it's going to be like to actually use the thing. At the end of the day, it's better that you buy something that inspires you to take it out and use it more often, and then you'll make more photographs, rather than buying something that might be better on paper, but you end up not loving it, so you just don't take it out the house with you and it sits in a drawer. That's no good for anyone. And one more note before we start, I am going to put the prices up in pounds on the screen, but that isn't something we're going to care about too much, because there are always sales going on, there are always discounts that you can get by buying it with a lens or something like that, and prices are so regional dependent, especially with tariffs and all of that going on. So I'm going to put the price on the screen, but it's not something we're going to focus on. We're going to be more focusing on what the camera actually is, and then the price can be something that is subjective to you, or a lot of the time subjective to the place where you live. We're going to start off by talking about the fixed lens compacts. We're going to get this one out of the way right at the start. We're going to talk about the icon, the camera that has defined a generation of photography, and the reason that Fujifilm is as much of a big name as it is today, the X100. The newest model is the X100-6, and if you think about a Fujifilm camera, this is probably the one that you're going to think of first. It is a small, compact, fixed lens camera that is perfect for travel photography, perfect for street photography, and absolutely full of toys. The fixed lens works out at 35mm, which is one of the most popular focal lengths in the world, but you can also buy an adapter that changes it to a 28 or a 50 respectively. This does add a bit of bulk to the camera, but it actually makes it a lot more flexible than you might think. The real joy of the camera, though, is in all of the extra features. It's got a built-in ND filter, it's got a built-in flash, and it's got this really cool hybrid optical viewfinder, which can either work like a digital viewfinder, or it can work like an optical viewfinder, which even gives you frame lines. It's an incredibly cool way to experience photography, and there is a really good reason why these cameras are so popular. That popularity is really a bit of an Achilles heel, because while the X100-6 is a camera that I would recommend to literally anyone who wants to do street photography or travel photography, actually getting hold of one is for some reason still astronomically difficult. One of my friends went into the Fujifilm flagship store in London a couple of weeks ago, and she still had to go on a 2-week waiting list before she was able to pick up her X100-6. It's the sort of thing that wasn't too ridiculous at launch, but like I said, the camera's been out for over a year, and finding one hasn't gotten any easier in that time. It really is fantastic, but you have to be willing to wait for it, or if you're in a rush, you have to be willing to pay a bit of a marked up price from a third-party reseller, which isn't always ideal. The X100-6 genuinely is one of the best cameras that you can buy today, but actually finding one seems so much like winning the lottery that it makes it really hard to recommend as my top pick unless you happen to get really lucky. So for that reason, I'm not really going to give it a rating, I'm just going to say good luck. Next on the list is something much newer. It's the X-Half. The pitch for the X-Half is that it's meant to be a hybrid between a 2000s era digicam and a 70s era half-frame film camera. And it kind of is meant to give you the best of both of those worlds in a really retro nostalgic experience that still has a lot of modern touches to it. The important thing to note about this camera is that it's the one time in this video where I'm actually going to break my own rules. Remember at the start of the video where I said that you should always buy for features instead of image quality, and that the image quality between all of these cameras is going to be roughly about the same? Well, the X-Half is the one where that isn't true. It's got a notably worse lens, it's got a notably smaller sensor, and it's got way less post-processing options because it only shoots JPEGs, it doesn't give you any RAW files. You will still be able to take good photos with this camera, but if you're comparing it to almost anything else we're going to talk about today, it is a noticeable step down. But that said, it does still have a lot going for it. Firstly, it is absolutely tiny. You'll see the photos of it and think that it looks small, and then if you actually go and hold one in your hands, you'll realize that it is even smaller than that. It also looks really cool, especially in that charcoal grey colour. That's an absolute favourite of mine. It's a really nice look. It feels great in the hand, it's got an optical viewfinder, and it produces images in a really fun, cool kind of way, where the entire thing is touchscreen operated, unless you put it into the film camera mode, and then it's entirely operated manually, and you even have to crank a fake film crank before you can take the next photo. It's a really weird experience, but it's a really fun camera, and for something that genuinely can fit in a tiny little pocket, it might actually be worth considering. I'm going to put the X-Half into a category of cameras that you need to try before you buy. Some people will think that it's really fun, some people will think it's a pointless gimmick, and some people will be somewhere in the middle. And whether or not the fun experience makes up for the slightly worse image quality is going to be entirely dependent on what you need from that camera. The next segment is the all-rounder cameras. These are the ones that can do a little bit of photography and a little bit of videography, but they're not super specialized in either direction. So if you're looking for something to do hybrid work with, or if you're not sure what direction you want to push your photography or videography in, and you want something that's pretty great for everything you're going to throw at it, you probably want to look here. And the quintessential example of an all-rounder camera from Fujifilm is the X-T5. The X-T series has always been Fujifilm's flagship in the lineup, and the X-T5 is no exception. It's a medium-sized camera that is styled like a film SLR. It's got loads of physical tactile controls like dedicated dials for ISO and shutter speed. It's got loads of custom function buttons. It's got 2 SD card slots so you can shoot in backup. The battery life is exceptional, and from a perspective of a camera that can get work done, there is almost nothing bad to say about it other than the fact that it isn't specialized. So if you want an all-rounder, this is absolutely one of the best that you can buy. But if you want something that's more photography or videography focused, then, well, check later in the video for that. If I had to name a downside, it's that it's just slightly too big to be a travel camera. You can pair it up with a compact prime, and you can still make an overall package which is relatively small, but it's still one of the larger cameras that we're going to talk about today, and if you're using it with a slightly larger lens, then you're then in the situation where it takes up an entire small sling bag just by itself. It's a fantastic camera, but it's not one that you can always just grab and go with at a moment's notice. The X-T5 is another camera that I'm going to give my absolute highest rating. Not everyone needs it, but if you do need it, it is an absolute workhorse that will serve you well for years and can handle absolutely anything that you throw at it. Next on the list is the X-T50. Despite the name sounding like that's got a bigger number, the X-T50 is more like a cut-down version of the X-T5. The X-T50 is still a great all-rounder camera, and it is a little bit smaller, which makes it a bit nicer to travel with. But it doesn't have those professional-level features like you get in the X-T5. For example, the X-T50 only has 1 card slot, it doesn't have as many shortcut buttons, the I/O isn't quite as good, and the build quality is just a little bit worse. Importantly though, what is the same is the sensor and the processor. So that means that if you're putting the same lens on an X-T5 and an X-T50 and all the settings are the same and everything like that, the actual image that you get out is identical, because it is the same internals, it's just in a slightly smaller shell that loses a few features. The really important difference to me is that the X-T50 isn't weather sealed, whereas the X-T5 is. So if you're going to be out in the rain or the dust or a sandstorm or anything else like that where there is a chance of some either water or dust getting into your camera, then maybe you've got to go for the X-T5, because the X-T50, as well as a few cheaper models we're going to talk about later, don't have that weather sealing capability. The other interesting thing that the X-T50 has going for it is a film simulation dial on the top. Now, on older models of the smaller XT bodies, this was a drive dial, so you could swap easily between stills, movies, or burst shooting, or other things like that. But it's now been replaced with film simulations, so you can change between things like Provia, Astia, Velvia, Classic Chrome, etc., on the fly and on a dial. Whether or not you think that's a great idea or whether that's a waste of a dial that could have been something else is going to be personal preference, Personally, I think it's quite a fun idea, but I'm not really sure if it's a useful one. The way that I use cameras like this is to set up my film simulation profiles well in advance, and I don't switch between them that often while I'm actually on a job, so for me, maybe that's not the best thing, but for someone who's newer to the Fujifilm ecosystem or newer to photography in general, it can be a really good way of exploring a lot of creative options with a really tactile, nice switch to do so. Overall though, I would say this is a camera that depends on what you're looking to do. If you're newer to photography, or if you're looking for something that's a bit more entry level, the X-T50 is a very good way to learn photography. But if you're looking for a second body for professional work, it probably isn't the right choice for you. The next thing I'm going to talk about are the cameras that are photography focused. It's not to say that these cameras can't do video, it's just that they've more been designed with photographers in mind and pure stills photography and getting the most out of that experience. The first one on that list, unfortunately, is a little bit of a weird story. It's the X Pro. The most recent X Pro was the X Pro 3, which came out in 2019. And as a photography-focused camera, it literally has everything you could possibly want it to have. The design is amazing. The viewfinder has got that same hybrid digital optical thing that the X100 series has, which is just the best experience for photography. And the X Pro 3 even has a flip-away screen, so when you're in the moment, you can just focus purely on being on the moment. Now, as I mentioned a minute ago, there hasn't been a new X Pro since 2019, and at this point we're not really sure why that is. There was a hint from someone at Fujifilm that said that they might not do an X Pro 4 unless they can think of something special to do. My personal speculation is that we're not going to get an X Pro 4 until we either get a new processor or a new sensor, and then the Pro 4 will be the thing that debuts that new sensor or new processor or other kind of new technology. If they do want it to be something special, I'm not really sure what else it could be rather than being the debut of some really high-end new technology. Whatever the case though, if you decide that you want an X Pro right now, you're gonna have to buy it used, which does mean that you could also think about the X Pro 2 instead. Here's a little rundown. The X Pro 2 is a much more conventional camera. It doesn't have the flip-away screen. Both of them are incredibly capable cameras that will produce really nice images. They both have the hybrid viewfinder, which is really great experience to use. For me, the reason I would go with the X Pro 3 is that it has a USB-C port for charging, whereas the X Pro 2 had a micro USB port. This might seem like a really small nitpick, but if you travel with your camera and you're taking your phone, your laptop, your iPad, your e-reader, your earbuds, all sorts of other things that already charge with USB-C, having to bring an extra plug that's different from all of your other cables just for your camera. I mean, think about it, that's going to go wrong at some point, and even if it doesn't, it's just annoying. On the other side of the coin, the flip-away screen on the X Pro 3 has had a few reports of getting quite easily damaged. It can be a little unsettling, especially if you have to buy a used one, so the warranty support might not be quite as good. That's why in general I do find it quite hard to recommend the X Pro line right now, which is a real shame because they're beautiful cameras that work exceptionally well, and for a lot of people it really is a dream camera. I just really wish there was an X Pro 4 so that I could wholeheartedly recommend that instead. Next up on the list is the XE5. Now, at time of recording, this camera is brand new, and I haven't actually had a chance to have a go on one myself yet, but we'll go over it briefly anyway. Now, if the X-T50 is like a smaller and cut down version of an X-T5, the XE line has always been like a smaller, cut-down version of the X Pro. It still has a rangefinder design, but without the hybrid viewfinder. It's a digital viewfinder only, which realistically is fine, and the main selling point of the XE series is that they are absolutely tiny. Depending on what lens you've got, it can basically be the same size as an X100, just with the capability of changing lenses if you do want to use something bigger. However, the comparison that I made earlier to the X-T50 is accurate in more than a few ways. It still has the film simulation dial. Granted, it's in a different place, but it's still there, so again, your mileage may vary on whether or not you think that's something great or you think that's something useless. And because it's not considered to be a flagship level camera, it is missing out on those pro features, like it doesn't have dual card slots, the battery life is a little bit worse, the build quality is a little bit worse, and it isn't weather sealed. So if any of those things are important to you, it might not be the right camera for you, but if you want something that's small, pocketable, and super capable, then maybe give it a go. It is very much a sign of the times that there are a lot more video-focused cameras than there are photo-focused ones right now. So this segment on video-focused cameras is going to get a little complicated. At the top of the list are the X-H2 and the X-H2S. These are Fujifilm's video flagships, and they've got every single feature that you would expect a high-end video-focused camera to have. So it's got a fully articulating screen, it's got PASM dials, it's got great ergonomics, it's got a ton of ports, they can internally record ProRes, and if you know what that means, that gets you very excited. If you don't know what that means, then these probably aren't the right cameras for you. That's the sort of high-end video stuff that we're dealing with these cameras. The difference between the two is the sensor. The X-H2S has got a lower resolution sensor, but it is a sensor that's much faster, and the S stands for speed. So that lower resolution sensor has better autofocus, less rolling shutter when you're recording video, and a much higher burst rate when you're doing stills. Really, the difference between the two comes down to what sort of content you're going to make. If you want high resolution, that option's available to you. If you want speed, that option's available to you as well. I think it's really cool to have that choice, especially at the high end of the market, where you might have people that have got very diverse needs. Overall, the X-H2 and X-H2S are fantastic cameras, but it is the sort of camera where you have to know that you need it. For most people, the specs that these cameras have are absolute overkill, and you'd be better served with something that's a little bit smaller or a bit more tailored towards your exact usage case. But much like the X-T5 is in the all-rounders category, the X-H2 cameras are absolute workhorses that you can throw anything at and you know that they will be capable of doing it. Next up is the XS20, and this is a really interesting camera, because Fujifilm positioned this camera as an entry-level camera for video. I think they were thinking that if the X-T50 is a small X-T5, then the XS20 is like a small X-H2. But really what's happened with this camera is that people who have an X-H2 already are buying an XS20 for their B camera. There are so many things that this camera does right, and it is such a small, compact, and ergonomically perfect body. It's one of those cameras where they've cut a lot of corners to get the price down, but the cuts that they've made are just so sensible that it doesn't actually interfere with the operation of the camera, and it doesn't really do anything to negatively affect the experience. An example of this is how they've used an older sensor, but they've used the newer processor. So you're not quite getting as much detail out of the sensor, but you are still getting the improved autofocus that comes from the newer processor. Another example is how it isn't weather sealed, but it does use the battery from the X-H2, so the battery life is really good, and it also means that if you do have both of those cameras, you can share the batteries between them. It's just a really sensible set of tweaks and compromises to make what is actually a very perfect B cam. It's not quite as good as the X-H2 if you want to make it your primary video camera. There's a few things that you'll be missing out on, but honestly, for the size and price that it comes in at, then it might be a good choice, especially if you're just starting out as a videographer or filmmaker. It can be a really good way to learn the craft. But if you've looked at the XS20 and you've thought, oh, actually, that might even still be too big for what I'm looking at, you probably want to look at the XM5 instead. Now, the XM5 is a video-focused camera, and they've made it as small as they possibly could, which even means they've removed the viewfinder. Now, for some people that's an immediate absolute deal-breaker, but if you're not one of those people, this might just be the right camera for you. It's an almost perfect vlogging camera. It's genuinely tiny, the screen flips round so you can watch yourself while you're speaking into it, it's really easy to handhold, and it's even got a few software tweaks that other Fujifilm cameras don't have to make vlogging easier. Like it's got customized controls that are all operated on the screen, and it's even got the ability to record in low bit rates on purpose, so that if you're the sort of person who wants to film something and then get it uploaded immediately, you can do that faster because the camera doesn't have to transfer as much data. The quality won't be as high, but it will be uploaded 15 minutes sooner, and for some people that really does make all the difference. The XM5 is a really interesting camera. I think if you were doing serious videography or filmmaking work, you would really struggle to make it work for you, but if you want something that's casual and is easy to use and is easy to slip into a pocket, then it might actually be the exact perfect choice. And I'll be honest, I never thought I'd be saying that about a camera that doesn't have a viewfinder. And that just about wraps it up, so let's quickly go over my top picks. If you're a street photographer, a travel photographer, or you just want a camera to carry with you every day and capture your life, get the X100VI. If you can't find an X100VI that's in stock anywhere, then get the X-T50 or the X-E5. If you're doing professional photography and you want something that can handle anything that you can throw at it, you want to get an X-T5. If you're new to videography, get an XS20, or if you're an experienced videographer looking for an upgrade, get an XH2S. And if you just want something that's fun and weird, then maybe get the X-Half, but definitely give it a try first, because that really isn't for everyone. Whatever you pick, the important thing is that you choose something that you're going to enjoy using. Your best work as a photographer will always come when you're enjoying the moment and enjoying the experience of making the photographs. So if there's a camera you've seen on today's list where you're thinking, oh, maybe that's not quite perfect, but I really love the style of it, then just get it. Because it will inspire you to go out and make more photographs, and that's how you're going to get better, and that's how you're going to do your best work. Anyway, that's all we've got time for today, so I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you've learned something useful. If you're stuck between two cameras and you're not sure which one you want to get, then drop me a comment and I'll try my best to give you some advice. But until then, peace out, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day.